I was physically, mentally, and emotionally abused, both by my mom, by my stepdad, or random people that would come in our home. And when I was 7 years old, I started being sexually molested by my own uncle. And that went on until I was 9. Around the time I was 11 years old, I ended up using drugs with my mom for the first time. I started smoking crack cocaine. And that was really hard on me. It created me to have this codependent relationship with my mom. And my whole life, I was like trying to save my mom from herself, whether because she was depressed, she would overdose on her pills, she would use heroin, use meth, all of these things. She caught her house on fire multiple times. I had to save her from her own burning room. And I just remember thinking, I want to die. I want to die. I've succumbed to, I was 100 pounds soaking wet. I hated myself. I hated looking in the mirror. I hated what I become. Um, and knowing that I wanted to die, but I wasn't able to do anything about it. There was something in me, just there's something bigger out there. You're larger than life was something that kept replaying in my mind.
You may want to get your box of tissue ready. I'm Chantal. This is Grace Uncover One, where we feature powerful testimonies that glorify God and inspire your work. I am a foster mom. A child came into my care. The first Friday in my home, she asked me what time the party starts. She was a victim of being in an environment where the adult in her home would have a party that featured drugs and alcohol every weekend. This led to an abusive household where children would fall victim to impaired adults. I am stunned to see how common this situation is. Even more, I am taken back by the lasting effect this has on the children. Tiffany testifies to going through a childhood like this and a life of abuse, addiction, and multiple suicide attempts. All is not lost because of the radical love of Jesus Christ. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Tiffany. I am a member of Champion City Church right now. So I definitely want to touch on my story because I do believe my childhood really embarks on what led me to be where I was and what helped me get out of the hell that I was currently living in on this earth. So my dad left when I was young. So I would have been not even born when my mom told me. Um, and I had two older siblings. One was 16 years older and one was 20 years older. So it's like my mom had a new set of children when she had me. And so my mom was kind of a single mom for most of that first 4 years of my life. After me, my brother was born. Um, and our family had so much dysfunction. There was drugs, gangs, violence. And when I say violence, I'm talking about a trap house. And if anyone has ever been in one of those, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's people coming in and out of your home, people you don't know. They're friends with your mom, they party in your home at all hours of the night, so you're having to fend for yourself. That's cooking your own meals, making sure you're going to bed on time, taking care of my brother, making sure he got to school. Even when there was fights or drinking and partying till 4 in the morning, we would still have to get to school. So a lot of that ended up falling on my shoulders. And when I talk about violence, I'm talking about people fist fighting in my home, knives being drawn, and a bunch of other things that are pretty descriptive. We know what it's like to be in poverty. I know what it's like to have food banks provide our meals. I know what it's like to have Santa's Anonymous provide presents for us at Christmas time. And that went through my entire life. And I also know what it's like to have no power and be turning on candles to make sure I have light, whether it's no heat in our home. So I would need to prepare hot water, open my stove so that I know what it's like to stay warm in the middle of winter. Um, I was physically, mentally, and emotionally abused, both by my mom, by my stepdad, or random people that would come in our home. And when I was 7 years old, I started being sexually molested by my own uncle. And that went on until I was 9. And I had such a hard time talking to people about what I had experienced. You know, a lot of the times our family would say, see nothing, say nothing, or other things along that line. But we didn't talk about what was going on in our home lives. So we had to keep a lot of this sheltered, whether it's to school counselors, whether it's to teachers. Um, and I also had a big sister at that time with the Big Brothers and Big Sisters Club, and she actually provided a lot of things that I would do outside of the home. But I had to keep a lot of the stuff going on at home separate. Um, I was raised Catholic, so there were times when I've been to Sunday school. I knew what it was like to pray on the rosary, the Hail Marys. I knew all of the Lord's Prayer. And that was great because my cookum actually enrolled us at a young age and she thought it was important. But again, it was like when you're watching what's happening in the church and then you see your family not in living and embodying what God means, it was really hard to have that understanding of, well, if I'm keep sinning, because I started to do things like stealing at a young age. And I didn't think that was a sin. I'm here, I'm watching my mom sin, but yet she's praying at night to God. And so to me, I'm like, well, are we all going to hell? And so I had all these questions at such a young age about who God was and my understanding of him. Um, as time progressed, I remember being watching a lot of things that were happening. And around the time I was 11 years old, I ended up using drugs with my mom for the first time. I started smoking crack cocaine. And that was really hard on me. It created me to have this codependent relationship with my mom. Um, I wanted to know what she was doing. And to me, I loved my mom. There was nothing anyone could say at my mom about at that time, what she was doing, because I loved her. I wanted to be around her. I wanted to know what it was like to be an adult. I feel like I had to grow up a lot faster, having to take care of my brother at such a young age. But once I started using, I became hooked. I loved the taste, the smell, all of it consumed my everyday being. But I still loved school. Like, this is something that's really hard to explain to a lot of people that in my nightlife, I may have been using drugs, but my school life, I loved going to school. I loved my friends. I love extracurricular activities like basketball. I was in cheerleading, and we actually ran provincials. I did drama club. I did plays and musicals all throughout my middle school. That was something I was so passionate about. Anything to get me out of myself, to be away from my family just for a time being because it was so dysfunctional at home. It made me just feel on top of the world. And so I was very good at school as well. I had straight A's all throughout my entire history. Um, and with that being said, it was really hard too because we were moving all the time, constantly moving from house to house and then town to town. I was born in Edmonton. Shortly by the time I was 11, we were already in Red Deer. And then when we got evicted from that place, we would just move to another place, being put from different school to school to school. And with that being said, it was so hard for me constantly moving, finding new friends, figuring out where I fit in this world. It made me have a really outgoing personality. But it was so hard for me to just uproot my life because my mom couldn't pay the bills. Um, and we even lived in Devon as well, and then back to Edmonton. So throughout my whole time, we were constantly moving. And like I said, I lived in over 20 different homes and been to at least 12 different schools. So things like that became very hard on me. And my whole life, I was like trying to save my mom from herself, whether because she was depressed, she would overdose on her pills, she would use heroin, use meth, all of these things. She caught her house on fire multiple times. I had to save her from her own burning room and kick down the door. There was times where she was hurt, injured, and I would have to call 911, sheltered my brother from all of these things. Um, and the times my mom attempted suicide and the overdoses she had were just astronomical. Like, I do feel like God put me in my mom's life to protect her and shelter her from all of the things that she was causing harm on herself. I was taught to steal at a young age. And this was really hard because when you're told as a kid, go in there and get your school supplies, go in there and get this. I actually thought it was normal. I did not ask questions until one day someone started chasing my mom out of the store. And I remember being like, Mom, what is going on? Why are we doing this? This isn't ours. And I started to ask more questions. I was a very smart girl. But again, my mom just said, we need this to get through. And so again, I left it as that. I never talked to anyone about it. Again, shortly after I was about 13, we had been taken away from foster care. This was a very short time. I was only gone about 9 months. We went from foster care until the last 3 months my sister ended up housing us. My mom did try and get sober at this time. She attended a 12-step fellowship. She tried to go into school, which she did actually accomplish. Um, but staying sober only lasted a very short time. By the end of that year, when we ended up being placed back with my mom, she ended up using again. She was drinking on a regular occasion, and it was just drinking. So in her mind, it wasn't that big of a deal. At this point, her and my stepdad were so toxic because that's actually why we got taken away at foster care. And their toxic relationship, they were fighting each other every day, broken pans, holes in the wall. It was just, like I said, dysfunction. Um, After my mom did sober up, like I said, she had made all these promises, like things were going to be better, things were going to do this until it didn't happen. Um, the addiction and violence continued and got worse. And then me and my brother at this point were already starting to drink. We were already starting to use drugs with our friends. And again, my secret crack addiction stayed private because that was the 9 months that I did get a little bit of sobriety. But when I went back with my mom, my life continued on, and I was this raging party girl. Um, and that carried on all throughout my high school years. Eventually, when we did end up back in Devon, I did graduate. I was really proud of myself. I had graduated with honors. It was like the biggest accomplishment because only 5 women in my family, or 5 people in my family, had graduated prior to me. So it was a huge deal. Um, and Yeah, so many opportunities came my way. I was feeling blessed. I actually won 2 scholarships to Mary Chan International Modeling. I was supposed to be on Family Channel. It was a pivotal moment for me through all of this, but I couldn't stop using. When I had the opportunity to be on Family Channel, I remember my mom saying to me, "We can't afford to send you." And my only thought was, but where's my high school education, like my college fund? Like, didn't you save anything for me to go to school? Like, I just wanted to do something with my life. And she said, at least you were chosen. And now that statement hit me hard. Because I always wondered, am I going to amount to anything? Is this going to be my life? Am I going to continue to use drugs and drink and be succumb to this every day? Because it wasn't just on the weekends. Throughout my entire high school career, it was every day. And then I actually got an opportunity because all I wanted to do was sing and act. And so it's like every opportunity that came, and then I couldn't stop using. I was so powerless over drugs and alcohol that it consumed my body. I could not stay sober enough to even attend these auditions. And then when it came to taking a flight down to Toronto, I couldn't make it because I was too intoxicated. Then Big Brother Canada season two. So Big Brother Canada season two had opened doors for me. I was so excited because I wanted to be on TV and I thought this is my big break. And I had passed all of the auditions. I was a semi-finalist on my way to be doing a psych evaluation. And then someone posted on my social media, "Are you getting on with the show?" And it actually turned out to be a family member. And I'm not supposed to tell anyone. It was supposed to be confidential. So I immediately lost my opportunity. And I thought that was my big break. That was my chance that I was going to make something of myself. And then it seemed like my addiction just took over even full throttle because here was me getting an opportunity and it falling through my fingertips. So I continued on with my drugs and addiction. I swore I'd do things different. I wanted to be different. There was everything in my core that told me, you're going to be better than your mom. I didn't want to steal. I didn't want to lie. I didn't want to keep being evicted. I even at this point, because I was only fresh off 18, I wanted to make sure I could hold down a job. I always seen my mom didn't really work, and I wanted to make sure that I can hold a job down. I didn't want to be violent. I didn't want to be sleeping around with men because it just seemed that my mom had a horrible track record with men as well. I wanted to be different. I wanted to make something of myself. And I didn't want to keep using drugs and I didn't want to keep drinking. It was just something telling me to stop, but I didn't know how. My sins got worse. I started lying. I started stealing. I frauded the government at this point. I had about 5 major credit cards taken out, which poorly affected my credit score because when you can't afford to pay those bills, it really affects you poorly. I started I was so hatred. I had so much anger and hatred in my bones from my mom for men because it only seemed men wanted to sleep with me. It seemed only women stole and lied and gossiped. So I started to have this anger towards every single person I met. It didn't matter who you were, what you said to me, even if you were the kindest person. I was so angry. And I always thought a man would save me. And that was the reality. I had to get out of my twisted thinking that men are not going to be the one to save me. But at that time, I didn't see that. I was going from one relationship to the next without ever having time to heal or to take care of myself. I started becoming very suicidal at this point. I felt like my world was falling apart and I didn't know how to save it. And I just remember thinking, I want to die. I want to die. I've succumbed to, I was 100 pounds soaking wet. I hated myself. I hated looking in the mirror. I hated what I become. Um, and knowing that I wanted to die, but I wasn't able to do anything about it. There was something in me, just there's something bigger out there. You're larger than life was something that kept replaying in my mind. And then I would put myself in more dangerous situations. I would get in cars with strangers. I would go to random bars and leave with people I didn't know. I was hanging around crowds who were then doing the same crimes that my family was. And I actually didn't want a criminal record. I was that girl that I didn't want to be a part of it. So usually I would leave and wander the streets myself if someone was doing something that I couldn't approve of. But I just didn't want to break the law anymore. I didn't want to be doing these things. There were so many things in my mind that I just wanted to stop. And because of me putting myself in dangerous situations, I ended up being sexually assaulted more than once. If it weren't for the second attempt, an ambulance actually saved me. And I feel like this was God, another one of those maneuvers that God was trying to save me from that situation. He sent an ambulance, and there I was, just shaken, alone, in just a t shirt on. And He saved me. And I remember the ambulance took me to the hospital, and this was the first time that they actually locked me in the psych ward. And I was so angry. Like, why are you putting me in here? I'm not a dangerous person. I just need help. Um, and it continued on like this. Eventually, I got out and I kept doing the same things. I had lost again another job. I finally got a job and then lose it. Got a job, then lost it because I couldn't stop using. So my mind was not in a focus. My head was a disarray. I was acting irrationally. Um, and I'm grateful that people always gave me an opportunity. I was so outgoing, people wanted to hire me, but again, I couldn't keep it because I was not well. There was even times where I did get this really great opportunity where I was doing door-to-door sales, and I was making a lot of money, enough that I was able to house myself in a millionaire mansion. I had the car, I had all the fancy clothes, I had everything I'd ever dreamed of. But during that time, doesn't matter how much stuff you have, physical stuff on this earth, it is not going to bring you true happiness. Because even during that time, I could not stop using. Um, Eventually, I had it all, right? Like I said, everything. And eventually, my partner left. And I remember I was devastated because this man, I thought he was the good one. He was the one that wanted me to leave my family, wanted me to get sober, wanted me to be on the straight and narrow. But I couldn't. Even when we had our own place in this millionaire mansion, I let my family come live with me when they got evicted. And they destroyed my stuff. They broke walls, they broke my glass table, they used and drank every day, and then it was making it hard for me to even try to be sober. And so he eventually left. And just a few months, I lost everything after he left. And Proverbs 14, 1 to 2 says, the wise woman builds her home, but if with her own hands, but the foolish one tears hers down. Whoever fears the Lord walks uprightly, but those who despise him are devious in their ways. And I was angry with God, blaming him and those around me, not taking accountability for my own life, though as the way it was. I thought everyone else was at fault, but I was not to blame. I got into more abusive relationships after being abandoned, feeling unworthy and that I deserved it. I tried geographical change. I tried moving to Toronto. I thought, well, maybe if I had my big break, things will work out. Within a month, I was already coming back for a guy. And then I lost everything. He ended up telling me to come to BC. I went to BC because here's me on a whim. It's wherever I go, it'll get better. But I had to work on me first for things to get better. But again, I didn't see that. I was so blinded by the men that they were going to protect me. And when I moved to BC, I brought everything, my cat, all my belongings, everything I owned, went to BC at his family's house. And within a few weeks, I was already in the psych ward again. I wanted to harm myself. I tried everything to commit suicide again or attempt suicide. And nothing worked. I remember being more depressed and just hating my life. How can I get out of this? They shipped me back to Edmonton with 2 bags of luggage. They said, we'll keep all your belongings, your cat, and everything. And when you get back on your feet, we'll send everything back to you. Um, so I went back to my mom's house, the only place, because at this point they had finally got a place after they moved out of my place. Things were good. And guess what? They told me at a house full of addicts that I needed help. Oh, that day, let me tell you, that day was probably the hardest day. Like, I was so mad. Like, you are the reason why I'm an addict. You are the reason that I am feeling this way. And again, here's me blaming, projecting all my issues onto my mom. But I was so angry that they told me I needed to leave. And so I lived on the streets. I literally carried my suitcases on a little shopping cart and I was walking around Edmonton for weeks. Finally, I was stayed at the WEMS. And then if I didn't like it at the WEMS, I went to the WEAC, which is the Women's Emergency Accommodation Center, anywhere I could go to get help. Finally, I was still a youth at this point. I was just under 24. So they allowed me to go into the youth shelter where I finally had a safe rest. Um, and then they connected me with an addictions counselor. From there, I was like, I need to stop. Please help me. She's like, okay, well, let's sign you up for treatment. First treatment center I went to, within 2 weeks, I was being kicked out. I punched a girl in the face because here's me using my violent tendencies, not knowing how to use conflict with women, not knowing how to communicate, not knowing how to talk to people. And so I used violence. I was in that fight or flight mode, right? Like, if I can't face it, I'm going to fight it. If I can, I'm going to run. And this is how I avoided so many of my issues. But I could feel God just there, like, let's do this, keep trying. And something kept telling me, try again, try again. So I went to another treatment center. 3 weeks, same thing happened again. And now I went back to her so desperate. I was like, there's something wrong with me. I'm never going to get help. I'm never going to get sober. Then she told me, she's like, well, there's opportunities out there. I actually skipped something. So when my mom had kicked me out, there was a Hope Mission Rescue van that I had called. And this guy tried to preach Jesus to me. He says to me, he's like, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the thoughts he thinks as a Lord of peace and no evil, to give you a future and a hope. And that hit me hard. I didn't really realize it at the time, but it was God speaking to me again that I'm going to do something with my life. And I just remember being so scared of this guy. I didn't want to hear it. I actually called him a lot of names as I jumped out of that van. And as I was leaving with my suitcase, he just started saying, Wellsprings, it's a good program. You're going to build a relationship with God. You'll meet women that you can build strong relationships with. Give it a try. What do you got to take for the rest of your life? And I just ran crying, emotional, weeping, unsure what to do with my life. And so when I then got kicked out of those two treatment centers, my addiction counselor was sitting there with me and I'm crying, like, what do I do? I need help. Help me through this. And she just says to me, well, what about Wellspring? Did you say that? That's only one other time I've ever heard that treatment center. And that was from the guy in the rescue van. And so I'm like, well, what is it? And she's like, well, it's a year out of your life. And I'm like, hey, a year, that's a long time. I can barely get a week. What do you mean you want me to get sober a year? She's like, well, what do you have to lose? Like, how long have you been using? And I'm like, well, since I was 11. She's like, want to try? And I just remember, like, okay, what can I do? Well, sure, like, give it a shot. And I got accepted right away. But I had to go and stay with WEMS, which is on the mats, on the floor again. So here's me still like, well, it's no better than what it is. I didn't realize that once you open the other side, there's this whole other treatment center and facility that they have, and they were loving and kind. And I remember within my first day being there, because that was June 2017, and my heart was so cold, and I yelled and I called many names, even to the staff, and I was so hardened. My heart, I wasn't ready and prepared for treatment or anything, but I was there. And I'm trying to navigate now, learning hygiene because I wasn't taking care of myself, learning how to get up at a regular time. I didn't have stability growing up. I didn't have routine. But yeah, so when I'm there, I remember just being angry one day and crying and all this stuff. And this lady came and sat beside me, and her last name was Grace. And she just put her hand on me. She said, are you sure you don't want to let Jesus into your heart? And I just remember being so sad. Like, what do you mean? Like, I've never thought of that. I don't trust God. I don't know to take this step. And she said, well, you seem so angry. And the only thing I know that's going to help you is Jesus. And I remember I was like, okay, well, sure, what is it? And she starts praying this prayer over me of salvation, that if I believe that he died on the cross for my sins, and I had a lot of sins, so I'm like, well, shit, this one guy did this, excuse my language, but at the time I swore like a trucker. So I'm like, what? Like, and uh, she asked me to forgive Jesus because I didn't realize I was so angry at him. I was so angry at God for everything that happened to me when I was a kid. The lies, the stealing, the abuse, the physical, the mental, the torture I went through. And I was like, well, why would he love me? So I had to forgive him. And I had to let him into my heart. And I remembered weeping uncontrollably. And I was like, what is going on with me? It just felt peace in my heart, warm, and crying and crying. And after she prayed over me, she told me I had to go pray in my own room by myself and invite him into my heart because it's the only way he's truly going to do it. She wanted me to go pray. And I'm like, well, I've never really prayed since I was little. Like, what do you want me to pray? And she's like, pray whatever is on your heart because he wants to know your heart. He doesn't care about anything else. It's not a script, right? And so I'm in my bedroom and I'm angry. I'm angry. Like, you let this happen to me. Why would you give me my mom? Why would you make me go through all this stuff? Why didn't I get saved? I hear of people getting adopted and given out, or why didn't I get saved, God? And I was just, there was so much shame and guilt that washed over me. Like all the things I had done, all the things how I treated everyone, even strangers that didn't know me. All of these things, like true repentance came from my heart. I just started verbal diarying all my shit that I did. I don't even know what it was coming over me. And at the end, I just felt like love and contentment. And even though I was angry because I was not very nice to him, my first prayer, I'll be real, God knows I was not the nicest person, but he just loved on me. And I think I cried the rest of the day. And I didn't even go to our Bible class that we were supposed to. I kind of hid in my room because I was kind of still like unsure of what just happened. And then as I'm going downstairs the next morning at a case meeting, and she actually has a big poster on her wall. And I was like, I don't understand why Jesus wasn't there for me as a kid. Like I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around who he is and why he wasn't protecting me. And then she showed me the footprints in the sand poem. And it says, for all those moments that you see one set of footprints, it was I that was carrying you through. And that hit home again. Like, my God loves me so much that he carried me and made sure that maybe those were all those little moments of positivity that I had in my life, like the Big Brother or the Family Channel or the Mary Chan International Modeling, or even as a kid when I graduated with honors and all the times that he did move us, maybe so I was supposed to make new friends because I did find good people along my way that tried to help me, but I wasn't willing and ready to be helped. And so now things just started to unravel. And then in Genesis 32:3 says, so Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, for that I have seen God's face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. Challenges I faced at Wellspring. Oh my gosh, I swear this is the enemy trying to get me back because now I know who Satan is just as much as I know who God is. Satan was trying to bully me. He was ripping my finances apart. I was in so much debt. I thought I would never get out of it. There was gossip about me, slanders. I would be on my best behavior. People would say to the staff that I was doing things that I wasn't doing. There were so many rules. I got so mad. I hate rules. My mom never gave me a single rule. I never got grounded. And now you're going to give me all these rules and tell me I have to be a certain way. I had a hard time being alone, being truly alone with myself. I did not like who I was. I didn't like to be alone with myself for 5 minutes. And then the routine and the structure and all of these things, and my anger was so prevalent. I would slam doors, argue someone, get defensive, get aggressive right away, go from 0 to 100. People would just be asking how my day was, and there's no reason for me to just act out and yell. And that's the thing, my family used yelling. That was how we communicated. There was no, oh, everything's going to be all right. There was no softness. So for me to learn to be kind and soft and loving was just teaching me to do everything backwards, right? Like having to re-strip yourself, like you're born again. God is literally molding you in every area of your life. And communication, like communication was so bad. And there was a rule, no dating. And I didn't like that rule because, again, here's me, a person who never liked to be alone, never liked to be without a partner. I thought a man was going to define me. And so I was angry about this. And they had a main rule, no men inside the breakout program, which is the men's program. And James 1:19-20 says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. So I was crying out after being bullied and then having an argument with a staff member, and I'm downstairs and I'm smoking because I'm smoking heavily, angry, crying outside, and I met a guy. Of course I did. and he was a breakout guy in the men's treatment. And he was a good guy though. I'm going to be real with you. I wasn't expecting this guy to be so like down to earth. He didn't want to have sex. He didn't want anything from me. He wanted to read the Bible. I'm like, who are you? Like, what do you mean you don't even want to kiss me? Like, no. And I had a longing for him because he was trying to teach me who God was. It was like God sent me a godly man to show me who he was so I could build a firm foundation on Christ rather than on my own self, because that's what I always did, was build it on my own self. And so in such a short time, um, we were engaged in 3 months. And I was like, this is my future husband. His dad's a pastor. He's a year sober. Like, he's a good guy. Um, and I only had about not even 3 months sober at this point. And this is the longest I'd been sober since I was young. So to me, this was a huge deal. But I chose to be in that relationship. The staff had given him an ultimatum saying, stay and finish the program. You can graduate and break up with Tiffany and let her do her program, or you leave the program now and you stay engaged. He chose to leave. He's like, I really do love this woman. I'm gonna let her stay and I'm gonna leave. He did the righteous thing. Now my selfish desires left with him. I packed my bag. He had no idea. I literally was already sitting by his car ready to go. And that same day I was using, but he didn't. He stayed sober. He stayed strong. He's like, you really should go back to your program, stay, like, do this. He tried to fight for me to choose my program. And I didn't. My codependency already showed with my mom, and it shows with my little brother. It shows I had such codependent issues that I had to be cleaned with someone in order to do anything. And that was me already enveloping myself into him. And I was like, we can do it together. We could do it together, right? Here's me again trying to do it together. And 2 Peter 2:21 says, it would be better if they had never known the way of righteousness than to know it, than be rejecting the command they were given to live a holy life. So when we moved in together and living in sin, because now we were living in sin, I couldn't stop using and I couldn't stop sleeping with him at the same time. It was all these issues still going on because I hadn't dealt with the root issue. God had started to work on me, and I turned away from everything he was trying to teach me because I thought I knew better. And Galatians 6:1 says, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently, but watch yourself or you may be tempted. And that was Josh. For 4 months, he just tried to make sure I was safe. He didn't use, he stayed strong. He took his year medallion. He did all the right things. He went to work, but I was so succumbed with this addiction again. It was like I hadn't missed any time. And my addiction got worse and worse. Now I was fighting with him, yelling, violent towards him. I actually gave him stitches twice. He broke my middle fingers. We broke phones. We broke lights. We got evicted. There was all these things that happened in 9 months. And now we're homeless in his car. And he was now succumbed to the addiction because he's like, well, F it. We just lost it all. And I was in psychosis so bad. I didn't know what was true, what was false, what was really going on. I really believed all the things that were actually going on in my head, but they were not true. It was, again, Satan trying to pull me down to be his army man, and I was not going to stand for it. God wasn't going to stand for it because he knew the plans he had for me. And we were brought to the point of desperation because finally, those 3 months passed. We were living in a vehicle with a smashed back end with cardboard box on it, desperate and clinging and crying out to God, like, God, save us now. Please save us now. And Josh got an opportunity right away. He went right into a sober living house with an old friend. But here's me, homeless again, and I didn't know where to go. So I went back to my mom's. And my mom was like, Tiffany, you can't stay here long, but here's a week you can stay on our couch. And so I just cried out to God, like, God, help me stop using. Josh tried to get me to come to a sober dance. And I was just like, I don't want to go. I'm so ashamed. But then God, I don't know what happened, but somehow I got accepted into Wellsprings and I didn't even apply. So I'm telling you, that was God. Like, he just was like, no, this girl is going. I don't know if you heard from Min Young, but either way, Min Young called me and said, Tiffany, we have a bed for you. I heard you need help. And so yeah, we almost killed each other. And here's God trying to say, just go figure it out. And God spoke to me clearly. I just remember when I came back, being confident of this very thing, he has begun a good work in you that he will perform until the day of Jesus Christ. And so I returned, and the staff got me to call Josh. I hated this phone call. They're like, you have to put your relationship on pause. And Tiffany really has to focus on her, or she's never going to get healed. Like, you need to give her this year, let her figure out who she is, take the time for you. And this is so hard for a lot of people in addiction to separate. Like, to be like, no, you can't be around each other and make a sacrifice. But I feel like God was calling me to make that sexual sacrifice. I had never made that sexual sacrifice since the time I was molested. I never had time to just be one with myself. And so we stayed abstinent through that year. That call was hard, but we did it. He said, I'll wait for you. And that thing, that hearing that hit me more than anyone could ever say. He wanted to wait, and no man ever waited for me. They just cheated on me or lied to me and left me. So he wanted to wait. And I remember I still didn't believe him. So just so you know, I'm very stubborn. So I didn't believe him, and I went to a staff member. She's amazing, powerful woman of God. And she started prophesying over me. And this was the first time I've ever been prophesied. She put her hands on me. She says, Tiffany, you need to get out of yourself and you need to just do what we tell you. And you need to stay away from Josh for a year, because if you stay away from him, you will have babies one day and you will get married and you will be honoring the Lord in everything you do. And just I was in shock, and I was like, just start getting pouring tears. Like, God is here. God knows what I need. And so I trusted that he was going to wait. And whether he did or not, I just knew that I needed to trust God for once in my life, because I never did that. And I, oh, so later on, Matthew 7:7, it says, ask and it'll be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and doors will be opened. And I never understood that. But for the first time, every time I asked God for something, God, can I get a pass to the gym? The door is open. God, right now I'm really struggling with all these creditors. Get them to all have grace with me, as they all said we will accept nothing while you're in treatment. What? Like, not a dime? You'll wait the year? We'll wait the year and we'll tackle it when you're done. Everything that I asked for, God made a way. When I needed friends, because I had no girlfriends, God started bringing these girlfriends into my life, and an old friend from my past. So I knew I wasn't alone in Wellspring. She was there literally on the second day, and I knew we would be best friends again, like we were back in the day. And then met another best friend who I'm still friends with to this day. But I started to make real friends because I asked God for friends, true friends that didn't want anything from me. They just wanted to love on me and pray for me and guide, be on my journey with me. And this time I had to really clean my house. And when I clean my house, I mean clean me. I had so much stuff poured on top of me, the negative, the sins, all of that stuff, the breaking family sin patterns, the stripping my codependency, dealing with, I mean, just everything. My mental health. I didn't realize I had bipolar, so I had not been medicated for many years, and that's why I was having manic moments of jumping out of vehicles and getting in random vehicles with people and doing dangerous things. And so now I finally went to see a psychiatrist. I got on medications. I started to do all of these classes. I started reading the Bible daily because I needed to know God's word. And I started meditating on his word. And all of these scriptures you're going to hear from me throughout this are all scriptures that were in my first year that helped me build my foundation of who God was, because I needed to know who he was. And I dealt with my traumas, all of those traumas, especially the ones with my mom, because I thought those would never be broken. And I honestly thought I would hate my mom forever. I just want to state that now. My past, my fears, my resentment, because I hated everyone. My finding my part in it, because I was so focused on everyone else, what they did to me. First time I had to go, no, what did I do to make these things happen? And I had to deal with my character. I did not like who I was. So if I didn't like it, then we had to change it. So God started to mold the one woman that he wanted me to be, the godly woman, the Proverbs 31 woman. That's the woman he wanted me to be. So I achieved this by doing my 12-step meetings, 12-step fellowship. I got a sponsor. I did my steps. I started to do cognitive behavior therapy, all sorts of things to fix me. And this really helped me building a relationship with God. Like, if I hadn't done my 12 steps, it literally allowed me to build a relationship surrender, give all of your will over to the power of his understanding. Allow him to relieve that way of thinking, my insanity, because I had such insane thinking. Deal with my resentments, my fears, my sex conduct, and all of my sins that I've done to people. Call another person. That's confessing and true repentance of the heart. It's telling another person everything I've done wrong. Eight, dealing with my character defects. 9, making those amends. 10, doing a daily inventory and owning my stuff when I make mistakes and when I'm wrong. And 11, praying and meditating. And 12, helping other people. That's what my 12 steps teach me. So it helped me to build that relationship with God, and I attended church regularly. I got baptized April 2019, and I still have my baptism thing hanging on my wall to remind me of when I truly came to Christ, when I truly owned it. And I still remember my baptism. 10 people came for me. Obviously, Josh's mom and dad, him, my mom, and my stepdad. And they were there. And I remember my mom in a walker coming up to me as I got up to the stage, even though I shared some bad stuff about her in my testimony, because I shared my testimony there too. She just loved on me, and she had no anger that I even said all those things in front of all those people. And usually she would have got mad at me, and she just wept with me and helped me. And I know that's God too, working with my mom. So Acts 2:38-39 says, Peter replied, repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of your sins, and you will receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. The promise is for you and your children, and for all who are far off, or far off, for all whom the Lord our God will call. I probably said that wrong, but I apologize. So after this, true transformation came. I feel like the most transformation I had was after God I got baptized, because I felt I was really one with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I started to love rules, structure, myself. That was a huge one. I did not like me prior to my baptism, but afterwards, I loved me. I started to have stability, real women in my life, real women of God that prayed over me. And they say the 5 people that you choose to stay by, those 5 people are who you're going to enact, right? And I chose strong women of God who were in the church, who loved on me. And I had more than 5. I had about 30 at this point, because I just built my village of strong women. Um, yeah, I had adventure. I love to get out. I used to hide in a bathroom or in an alley, and now I'm going to the gym. I'm going on adventures. I'm going to Taste of Edmonton. I'm going to K-Days. I'm going to concerts. I'm going team. I did jamming for sobriety because I love to sing. So here's me doing karaoke for the Lord. And um, yeah, I felt so alive for the first time in my life. I wanted to die before, and now here's me. I want to live. I want to embrace life and take it as I found real peace, like peace in my heart that I had never understood. There was no more anger. I mean, I still have anger moments, but I don't sin in my unrighteousness, right? I had serenity and joy, like true joy that just emulated me. Like I was happy all the time. And there's a song I listen to right now. It says, the reason why I smile so much now is for all the tears that I cried. And I've cried a lot of tears. And here's me brimming. Um, I found hobbies, puzzles, singing, sports, swimming, all sorts of things that I didn't get to do. I had this fear of missing out. So I was so busy when I got into recovery. Everyone was like, you never used to do anything, and now here's you doing everything. Because I had a fear of missing out. I never got to experience all the things that everyone else did. So now I just was so eager for life. I did programs like Empower You, and through that year, I actually started to rebuild my credit. That was beautiful. I started to save with ATB, and then they matched that, and I used it all for debt. And I started paying off those debts. I started saving. I started reconnecting with my family members, like my sister and my niece, especially my sister Tina. I do have an older sister, Tracy, but she's just not willing and ready for me to talk to her, but that's okay. My sister Tina has loved on me. She's so proud of me for the strides I've made. And my nieces and nephews who were older have all loved on me too. And then I would finally have my nephew who's 11 now. For the past 6 years, he's been in my life because God started to restore those relationships that I thought were never going to be in my life again. I started getting to spend sober time with my mom. Like I took her to karaoke. I brought her to my house for fires and campouts, and just for walks with the dog and grocery shopping and doctor's appointments. I became her full-time caregiver, even when I was in treatment. Um, I just loved spending time with my mom. Yeah, she's an amazing woman, and I got to see who she was aside from the drugs and alcohol because she's not that person. And I feel like when I got baptized was a pinnacle moment for her. I'll explain in a bit. So my brother, who is still in and out of jail, he's not doing well. He struggles with alcohol and addiction, and he's also a drug dealer, and he's not ready to get out of that life. But when I, for instance, Wellsprings, I've been praying over him that one day he would be saved, just like I was, and have the true freedom of Christ, because I don't want him to be stuck in bondage for the rest of his life. I know how it was for me, and I just want him to have that freedom. I got to start telling my testimony like today. I'm on the YouTube channel for Champion City Church. I have been on radio kiss-a-thons. Sorry, the radio-a-thon. Sorry, I don't know if it's a kiss-a-thon. Radio-a-thon. I've been going to the Remand. I just got orientated. I get to go to YYC, which is the youth treatment center. I get to go to Henwood, all sorts of treatment centers like Wellsprings, detoxes all over the place. I've even got to go to kids' school and preach about my story, Kidified, to them on Thanksgiving to know that they should be thankful for all the things that they have. And God has been like opening doors. Let me tell you, He wants me to share my testimony with others so that they're not alone. Um, I've also got to speak in 5 different churches, so that's been a blessing. Aside from Champion City Church, even a Ukrainian church because I'm part Ukrainian, and so when I found out they actually translate everything in Ukrainian through headphones, thought that was so cool. But God's purpose for me. Luke 8:39 says, return home and tell how much God has done for you. So I put the women went away and told all over town how much Jesus had done for her. And that's what I do today, because I would not be where I am today without God.